afternoon. How are we going today? I hope you are having a fabulous afternoon here. Now let me just make sure that I can hear everything here. Okay, and then I can come and change around. Okay, good afternoon. How are you going today? As always, my name is Julie Hall, and I've got to use a real mic today because the other one is off on the other computer. So I hope you're having a fabulous Sunday afternoon. I'm expecting people to come through maybe a little bit later today because we have just started daylight saving time. And for those of you who are not in Australia, what that means is on the eastern seaboard, that means that only that half of us are an hour ahead or behind, depending on what way you want to think of things, than the other half of us. It causes a lot of controversy within Australia, and I'm not going to get into that. So, good afternoon. I can see we've got Chris Murphy here. Oh, lovely. Chris Murphy's in a motorhome in Brisbane. Lucky, lucky woman. No, I'm not doing the Brizzy show this year. Look, at the end of the day, financially, the shows have gone up in price, and they have then kept the... they've also made them a less day. And it's one of those sucky things that I just cannot do at the moment. And look, on top of that, this year has been an absolute... I'm trying to think of a really nice way of saying shit show, just emotionally for me. I've really struggled this year, so it hasn't been the time for it. And I can see we've got Kathy Odekirken with us as well. Thank you for coming along. But I have had a lovely weekend. I hope you are having a great time as well. We've got, and I can see we've got people coming in on YouTube as well. Thank you so much for joining us. So the weather at the moment, it is this beautiful hot breeze coming through Canberra at the moment, and we are at 27. I mean, we are never ever at 27. So that is just amazing. And I can see we've got Julie Dodds here as well. Thank you for joining us, the lovely Julie. And this afternoon, we are going to stitch out block 9 in the Lovely Quilt. And what I love is, again, I'm going to show you how to use the Accurate Stitch Regulator on the Janome machine. And what this is this is the regulator that allows the stitches to all be the same size as I do the free motion, because it changes that size based on how quickly I move the fabric. So similar concept to the Bonina Stitch Regulator. So I'm going to show you how I do that one later on. Now, what I've loved being able to show this year is the differences in how you can hoop depending on what type of machine you have. So what I'm going to show you today is using the theory that you've got a long hoop but not necessarily a wide hoop. And what we're going to do is we're going to do these two designs and then these two designs. Okay, so remember to ask questions as we go along. I love hearing from you guys, love hearing what you guys are doing at the moment, and what projects you've been working on. And we will chat more as we come through. But let's come and get started. Okay, so to get started today, we are going to work on block 9 of our gorgeous Lovely Quilt. And the way I want to do this one is to show you how I do it in a hoop that is long but narrow. So not large enough to do the entire block in a single hooping, but long enough to get 2 designs into a single hooping. And again, I've come through and I've chalk marked my centers, and then I've marked 1/2 inch out from each of those center lines, and I've also then marked 5 inches up from this point here, which shows us exactly where. I'll do it so that you've actually got the inches showing there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which shows us where the top and bottom of our design should be. Once we've got that, we can come over to our machine. And I've got my design loaded, and I've got my water-soluble thread, wash-away thread, ready to go. So the first thing I'm going to do, and we've done this so many times before, is just start looking with our laser light on at where that design is going to sit. And I'm going to come through, and I want to come, now loving where that's sitting, but that is going to be our top corner part. Now, and I'm just realigning that fabric as I go along. This should be our bottom. I'll come back and set that top again just to make sure I'm in the right spot. Okay. Once we've done that, so we've got our top and bottom going along this line, which is exactly where we want things to be. We've got the center of the design on the center point there. Therefore, I can stitch out colorway 1, which is going to be that tack down stitch. Once we've done that, we can start our stitching. Okay, so I'm going to use orange as my first color here. And even though I'm doing this in one hooping, to avoid movement of the design, I'm stitching this design first, then I'm stitching this design. And what I love on this is that after we have finished that first sort of setting down of the fabric, we're halfway done. It's kind of just a nice place to be in. And we can start our stitching. Okay, Oh, Julie, 33 degrees in Sydney. Yes, it is. Is anybody else kind of worried about what the heat is going to be this year? I'm loving it at the moment, I've got to say. After winter, I am really enjoying the warmth, but for it to be this warm in Canberra this time of year is quite terrifying. So this is what we are working on, and I'm still going with those 3 bright colours, and I'm loving how the colours really have changed. Everything from being a very delicate and what's the word? Probably a little bit old-fashioned into something much more modern. And I think it was Ems who said the other day that she actually quite liked the colours that I was using. So this might end up being something for Emma's bed. So how has everybody's week been? We've had a lovely, well, it's been a bit of a busy week. I mean, I had to go up to my father's in Western Sydney for a couple of days, but it meant that I got to catch up with my father and my sister, so that was lovely. And good afternoon, Helen Cassidy, lovely to see you. I also then picked my sister-in-law up from the train station on my way home from Sydney, because all of my husband's siblings and my husband went down to Melbourne for the weekend, and they've scattered my father-in-law's ashes. So I'm just waiting for my darling husband to return sometime, hopefully, whilst we're doing this video cast. Now, because that means I've then got guests for dinner before we send them back up to Brisbane tomorrow. I've got Edward baking focaccia, and I think he's doing a cheesecake and berry compote for dessert, just to show off to his aunties that he can, that he's a skilled cook. And then we've got I've got a roast lamb ready to put on. Okay, so Chris Murphy, you were saying you're in a motorhome in Brisbane. Where have you been travelling to? And what's everybody else been up to this week? I actually sat down last night and I did some digitizing. Let me see if I can bring up what I've done to show you. Oh, look, the kid's becoming a really good cook. I mean, his breads are just amazing. But he was going to make apple pie from scratch, but he was worried it might be a little bit too warm for that. Helen Cassidy, you are doing the now what do we call that? That's the holiday shuffle, holiday grandparent shuffle, isn't it? It's always just the amount of time it takes things to open up. Okay. And it's quite interesting, actually. I think, things have changed so much from... And my sister and I, there was, I think, 12 years difference between when she had her first child and I had my first child.
And and look, I lived in Melbourne when I had my first child as well, so that was different as well. But my mother was only, 49, 50 years old when my first niece was born. And so she looked after that child. My sister is now 50 something, and, in the next year or two, her children will start probably having children. But she's very much in career mode at the moment. And when we were discussing this the other month, she was saying her version of helping and assisting will probably be to pay for a nanny for a day, to help out her children. And it's just interesting how things have changed. Look, I always call myself blessed and lucky, and by the same token, we chose to not have overseas holidays while we were raising our children, so that I could be at home working on my business and sort of being there 9 out of 10 days. Oh wow, Chris, okay. Gee, that's a long way to go for surgery, darling. I know they looked at removing. She had the one that was almost. Mum had the one that was almost around the throat, or not the throat, but the upper, and she got a lot of reflux. Oh my God, 5 grandchildren at once. Yeah, I'm not sure I ever see myself. I don't know that I ever see myself having grandchildren. I don't. Yeah. I mean, the kids are only late teens at the moment. But I could almost see them preferring to be child-free. But I was also blessed that when we were in Melbourne, we had the most amazing group of friends and family who adopted us. And I mean, the kids just chose who they wanted to go to for weekends. We didn't put a lot of effort into their weekends, till we moved up to Canberra. It's just, we had lots and lots of people to help us, which was an absolute blessing. So yes, but, and, look, I looked after my niece. We cooked for my dad. We did our stuff, this week. So what I wanted to show you, and how in heaven's name have I managed to close that down? Don't you hate that? You forget what you're doing, and I've just hit the wrong button. Instead of minimizing, I've gone through and I've actually deleted something instead. That'd be right. There's got to be somewhere out there. And Marja Locock, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. And Marja's on YouTube. I apologise if I have mispronounced your name. But I appreciate you being here and checking in with us. So this week, again, we're still on holidays. So I've got the kids around, but I am getting back into some sewing this week. It's been a month since I did the, since I did the class to update my training, and I've just finished on Friday my last live submission, and I taught a bunch of people how to digitize and embroider a Doctor Who shirt. That was my my final 40-minute presentation. Figuring that I had to do something slightly different. But one of the things that I'm thinking of doing this week is some painting, and I'll show you what I mean by that as soon as I learn to spell. Oh, Chris, I can definitely see why you'd go to the surgeon that you trust. Like, you hear so many stories these days. Going to someone who you've been to before is always a good idea. Okay, let's come through and show you. So these are ones that I'm working on, and they were actually ones that I started working on while we were off on our holiday back in May, and it's just taken me a while to get around to them. But what I'm going to do is I've got some paints, and they've got that little bit of sheen of metallic to them. So I'm going to stitch, and then I'm just going to highlight different parts of each insect with some metallic sort of paints, just to highlight what we've got. And okay, so now we are over to the second block. Now, I know I've said this a couple of times. I mean, we are up to block 9 now. But what I really do suggest, and you'll see here I am rethreading as I go along. So I've done all of the first block, then I'm coming down and doing all of the second block. The reason for that is because things can move. And the last thing you want to happen is for that to be enough off that it is going to cause a problem there. Now, how many of you forgot about daylight saving, for those of you who are in Australia? Maya. Ah, thank you. I'm sorry, I really am terrible with names. Oh, that is not good. So, Darling Husband was in, was down South Gippsland, where they used to holiday as a family when they were young. So I've been having alerts put on because of the weather. Thankfully, it wasn't down there, but on the other side of the coast in Melbourne, they've got emergency warnings out for bushfires already. I mean, this is just horrific. Down near Morwell, Marutna, Birralong, this is just terrifying. We are we're sort of talking to the kids now that we're sort of 5 adults, on what an emergency evacuation plan is and sort of what that means. I mean, it's been 23 years since Canberra went up in flames, which was before we lived here, but it was the weekend that we got married, and I just want to make sure that we know what's going to happen. What I'm loving about the block of the month this year is just how much I'm falling in love with the designs all over again. Like, this is one that was done sort of a while ago. And it really is still loving. this little weave fill here, almost a cross stitch, but not quite. Thank you, Pamela. It's just, it's so simple and yet so delicate. It's just, yeah. And I think this was the first time that I used the my version of the Lazy Daisy stitch on the corner, or daisy chain stitch, shouldn't call it Lazy Daisy. So other than that, about the only thing I got done last week was I got 3 towels done, because we were going up to see one of my nieces who has 3 young children. And we were going to go sort of Dad and I were going to drive all the way up to Taree, go and see this. It's one of my brother's children. So we got, I got up there, spent the day with Dad, did all that, yada, yada, yada. And she calls up, she was called into work, so we had to put that off, which is, it's fine that, you know, that we had to put it off, but so I'll be posting those out this week to her, which is always a bugger, because I splurged on the big bath sheets, because I can remember as a kid I loved when you were the kid who got the bath sheet that week. I mean, I think we only had one massive sheet between the 3 of us kids, and then mum and dad had sort of one each, and otherwise you were left with just the regular size bath towel. And the candle wicking is just gorgeous. Self-praise and all that crap. Now, I have put on the website, please go through and download the first of the key charms. And I'll come, let me just find it so that I can show it to you. Okay, so today's freebie on the key charm is the letter D. I will have a video that I'll pop up after we finish this afternoon. But that is our first design, and there'll be a different letter each day. Now, Murphy's Law says you're going to run out of thread. So I won't go through when every letter is going to come out, but tomorrow will be the letter H. And this is that daisy chain stitch. And I can remember being so proud of myself when I worked out exactly how to do that. Doesn't take a hell of a lot to amuse me. That's pretty well it. Okay. So now we're going to come back and we are going to again turn on our little laser. Now remember, when you're using this the CM17 machine, for the laser to turn on you have to have the presser foot that plugs in at the back. And move my fabric. Now I've already put my wash away thread. And then once I'm happy with the positioning of that, I can come through and we are then ready to tack that down. Now, remember, if it takes you 2 goes to tack it down, that is okay. I would prefer to unstitch at this stage than I would after I'd done some of the beautiful coloured stitching. And once we are happy with how that is set, we're going to come through and we're going to begin our stitching. Now, how many of you are football fans? If you live in Australia, it has been the weekend of football. So yesterday was the AFL football's grand final, and look, I'll be honest, I didn't even watch it. Normally it's the sort of thing that I'd sit down with my hubby and watch. And then tonight is, because he was raised in Melbourne. I lived there for 10 years, but he was raised in Melbourne. Tonight it is the NRL, which was originally the Sydney's version of football. And it is, so it's their grand final tonight. That one's slightly more important to me. Not that I have to watch it, but I do have to know what the score is because my father's team is playing in it, and he'll disown me if I don't know. But the best thing about that is that tomorrow, football's over for the year. It's done. So, has anybody been getting any stitching on this week? I'm actually thinking of taking the girls out to Vinnie's one afternoon this week. Probably do it on, actually, if I was smart, I'd do it on a weekend, on one of the days that Emma's working, and that counts as driving her to work as well. And I want to start the girls thinking about purchasing a piece of clothing and being able to adjust it to fit themselves. I mean, very few of us are a perfect clothing size body. And one of the issues that Grace is having at the moment is that her her thighs and her bum are larger than her waist, and she's having trouble getting to the right sort of spot. So, getting a nice fitting clothing. So I've told her we'll find some stuff that fits on the larger part, and then I'm going to show her how to go through and change so that she is making something that works for her. Okay. Oh, Helen, nice. How old are the grandkids? I'm actually sitting here. It's been so warm today. This is actually my first coffee that I'm drinking. And I was up at a reasonable hour. 8 and 10, that's probably a really good age. What are you guys going to make? First things I did with the nieces and nephew were, I made them quilts out of whatever they were into at the time. And I mean, we're going back 2001. I had my Janome, I had customizer software, and I would scan in pictures from colouring in books. And because there was no Google Images or anything then, so I would scan in pictures from colouring in books and then turn them into stitch files. So they all had quilts of their favourite whatever. And then I think they wanted to do like shirts, was one of the first things that they wanted to do themselves. And then I can remember Hannah visiting once when we were down at the farm, and she would have been maybe 13, 14. And she wanted, and the reference for it was from Charlie's Angels. She wanted the day of the week underwear. So we went and bought just, a pack of cotton underwear, and we embroidered the names of the day of the week on the underwear. And she was happy. Oh, Chris, that sounds like a nice idea. Yeah, embroidering along the hem. Yeah. Oh, that skirt was gorgeous. Oh, nice. The 8-year-old's making a bookmark. 10-year-old's embroidering a dog, which is going to have a name on it. Lovely. One of the interesting things when I presented how to do the t-shirt was in my training class during the week. People were commenting on just how zen and like they could really fall asleep watching the machine working. And we've got Angela Taylor Seddon with us. Thank you for joining us, Angela. I hope you are having a lovely weekend. Now, I think 3/4 of Australia has a long weekend this weekend. Thankfully, I am one of those people. Although, I think tomorrow I have to get up at like between 5 and 5:15 to get the sister-in-laws out to the train station. It feels like something I should do because Edward's been up all weekend sort of with them. So I have had 2 nice days of sleeping. Oh, nice. I see. I am loving it when when the young people are picking up the techniques. Great. I mean, Grace and Emma have no real interest in sewing at the moment, but they're also, because they're now earning money, they're getting stingy about the concepts of spending it. So, and I'm trying to teach the concepts that I was really crap at, of buying quality, modifying it, taking care of it, keeping it forever. At least on your basics. Oh, and did anybody see, if you're a binge user or a if you've got Binge or Foxtel, Great British Sewing Bee comes back this week. Oh, op shopping is the best. It is, and Canberra has great op shops. Like, different areas have different, I really feel different qualities of op shops. Emma is working at the one in Belconnen in Canberra, and she's like, they seem to have a great range. Then we've got the ones in Sydney. I struggle to find a really good one, but Savers down Fountain Gate in Melbourne, I got some phenomenal stuff from. Okay, so are we ready to have a look at how we are going to use the stitch regulator to do our quilting? Let's just finish this. Now that our embroidery is finished, I can come over and begin the quilting. So I've pressed my block, I've removed my excess wash away, and what I've got here is I've got a piece of backing fabric, I've got my wadding, and I've got my block. And I've just ironed those all together, and I've got my Janome ASR foot on here. So I am going to come through, and I love starting off on the border because it means I don't have to pull that thread through. When I say that, what I mean by that is that any knot that's going to come through is going to be underneath, or in the part that I'm going to trim off later. that's nearly half of it done. And I'm just thinking about how I'm going to come through with the other half. And it's really whatever way you are most comfortable stitching at. And our block is now ready to be trimmed up, ready to go into our quilt. And doesn't the quilting just change that? Like, it just looks so different once you've got that quilting on there. So good afternoon, Michelle. Now, one of the things that I really not struggle with, but I need to practice more with using that ASR foot is just getting my hands and my presser foot working at a less jerky movement, because the machine looks at how quickly I'm moving my fabric and how hard I've got the presser foot pushed down. I just need to make that smoother, and that is all on me, not on the fabulous technology, which, if you get a chance to have a play with it, give it a go, because it is beautiful, and it means that each of those stitches are the same size. So that, as you can see there, is my finished block. Now, next week, I just want to with you. Okay, what I've got for you next week is this stunning stained glass wall hanging, and I try and do a piece of stained glass each year because I think it is a brilliant technique and so much fun to play with. And I actually taught this one earlier in the year at Michelle Reynolds' retreat up in Queensland. Thank you so much for inviting me, Michelle. So this is all done in single hoopings. The matching up is so simple. If you haven't seen me do these before, it's just amazing how easy it all is to go together. But it comes out. So using an 8x8 inch hoop, it is going to create a wall piece or cushion piece that is 435 millimeters tall by 400 millimeters wide. So 43 by 40 centimeters. When I taught it, we had one person come through, and in the class, they did theirs on a black background. So all of that beautiful white and greys up to blue that you see that I've got there, that was all done in black, and it was basically sunflowers at night. And it was so stunning that I'm going to do mine in a black background. Theory being that I've then got the one here, that my sample piece, that is in white, and then I can have the other piece in black, and they're kind of going to mirror each other. So that's my theory on doing that one. And it's such a fun one to have a play with. So join us next week for that one. I'll be doing that on both Thursday evening and Friday. Now, I'm sure there was one other thing I was going to show you, but I'm now thinking that might have been a fib because I haven't got anything else open here. So, as always, thank you so much for spending time with me. You guys know I love it, and it just does my heart good to see you guys come on in and share some time with us. As always, do not forget, or for this month, do not forget to download the freebies each day and give that one a go as well. But until next time,